How are you?
Good. Do you want to do an opening comment or go straight to questions?
I think we're good.
All right.
Straight for questions.
Okay, we are ready to begin with Coach Golden. We're just going to go straight to questions. Again, please raise your hand and we will get a mic to you. Bob Holt up front.
Okay. Hey, Todd.
Good morning.
Arkansas Democrat Gazette. I read somewhere reputable that you guys signed a great transfer class. I was wondering if you could maybe go over those guys and how good you feel about the guys you had in the portal.
Yeah, I think we did. You know, part of it was we signed a lot of them. So we have 5, transfers coming in. We knew we needed to replace a lot of production as Colin, left our program. And I feel like we did a really good job of getting a good balance in the front court and in the back court. Starting with Tyrese Samuel, averaged double figures, did a really good job at Seton Hall last year, coming down to play his 5th year with us. Really talented young one in Micah Henlockton, who will be a sophomore for us, was at Marshall, Sun Belt Freshman of the Year last year. Really, really good shot blocker, rebounder, and a great presence at the rim. And then in the backcourt, Zion Pullen, a 5th-year transfer from UC Riverside. I think he averaged like 18 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds, something along those lines last year on the West Coast. And then Walter Clayton from Iona. I think he'll be one of the best shooters in the league. 3-level scorer for us, a guy that averaged close to 18 a game last year as well. So, and then Julian Rishwain was a 5th year that we brought from San Francisco. My old job, a guy that could really stretch the floor for us. But those guys can all really help us in different ways. And to get guys that have performed and been efficient and done well at their previous stops should really help us this coming year. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks. I promise I'll give it back. Hey, when you were here before, in the league as an assistant, how would you compare the league then to now? Because you got, it's obviously it's perception right now. We have 5 teams ranked in the AP preseason, and I think you guys are one of 4 teams getting some votes, so obviously well thought of. Just how good do you think the SEC is in hoops now? Because obviously everybody thinks football first, but basketball's gotten really good too.
Yeah, I mean, this league is way better than it was when I was here as an assistant, But, you look back at when I first got to Auburn, and I think it was 2016, the league was trying to find ways to get basketball at the same level that football was, whether it was creative scheduling. There were a lot of different initiatives that they were taking on. But when you look at it, I really think that the coaches that were hired during that stretch were a huge reason why the league is at the level it is now. And you can argue it's the best league in America. But as you said 5 or 6 teams getting in the top 25, 4 other teams getting votes. That's more than half the league that some people consider to be top 25. And when you put that together, it's going to be really tough.
Right here.
James Fletcher from On3. We've seen an emergence of international prospects coming to the college ranks over the last couple of years, and I know you have multiple international players who are on your roster. So what do you think has led to that transition in them being more interested in college opportunities, and what has made you as coaches more interested in adding them to your roster?
I think they're more interested simply because they've seen guys come before them and have success, and it's been going on for a while, but now you see more and more guys coming over and having really good careers that lead them for the opportunity to play in the NBA. I think that's number one. And then as coaches, we see guys when we go recruit internationally that are really ready to go. They've kind of come up through clubs or different organizations where transparently they get to train more than our young men and women do. And, these international prospects that are coming over generally don't have a lot of baggage with them. They're coming over to play basketball, go to class, and do the best they can to prepare themselves to become pros. And so you have guys that are really focused and have a great understanding of why they're coming over. So I think when you put those things together, it explains a lot. International players have done really well in our programs. We obviously added a couple more this year, and it's a space that we'll continue to recruit really hard as long as we're at Florida.
Front row.
John Zeno, Associated Press. There's been almost, and this is kind of out of left field here for a little bit, there's been almost like a 25% drop in number of freshmen, the amount of freshmen in Power 5 conferences over the last 4 or 5 years. Is that almost a negative side effect with the extra COVID year, transfer portal? So does that make it harder for kind of high school prospects to get them in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit it on the head. I think it's it's funny because somebody that was driving us over here in the car asked a very similar question. But yeah, the two things that clearly have led to less freshmen being in the mix. Number one, the COVID year, right? It's just math. Every player that played in that season got an extra year of eligibility. So now instead of 4 classes that are continuously rotating, now you have a 5th class that's in there kind of jumbling it up. And then, every student athlete can take advantage of the one-time transfer exception. And so you have freshmen coming in, especially at our level. Most of the freshmen that are recruited have a lot of options. And they're, highly decorated players, guys that, have been on different campuses and have been wined and dined in terms of being recruited to the different institutions. And so when they get there and it doesn't necessarily work out the way they want it to in year one, it's easier for them to leave. And so when you have that potential in the equation, it makes it even more difficult to invest in young freshmen and bringing them on campus. But, it's something that I think will continue to turn as these COVID players graduate, and then everything kind of evens out. And then I think it might sway back to more freshmen being recruited and being involved in these programs. But it's tricky because there are still a lot of really talented freshmen out there that deserve these opportunities and that are loyal, that will be in your program. But we as coaches and staff members have to do a really good job, figuring out which ones are the right ones to bring in.
You talk about being wined and dined and things not going guys' way and then quickly transferring. How much more now how much is player retention and the all year long attention to that on a staff? How much more important is that now than it's ever been?
I think it's really, really important. And I think the key to that also is you have to get your program to a spot where you want to retain everybody and make sure that those guys are on board with what you're doing. But I look at our program going from last year to this year, we did not have a lot of retention, but we did highlight and find a handful of guys that we thought were great fits to grow in our program and to take the next step. And then as we go after this coming season from years 2 to 3, I think retention will be a really key part of our program. We have 9 guys potentially that have the ability to come back, and we want all 9 of them back, and we want to build with that group, and I think that will be an opportunity for us to take another step up. So once you get your program healthy and once you get it right, I think retention is a great way to kind of separate yourself and give yourself a competitive advantage against your peers.
To your left.
Hi, Coach. Johnny Thornton with the Game Day Weekly. Talk about what you feel like you've learned in your first year coaching the Gators going into year 2, and also what's it like to coaching against some of the most outstanding coaches that are recognized across the country that come from the SEC?
Yeah, no, it's obviously year 1, a great experience. We didn't finish the way we wanted to, but we had some really good moments. I thought towards the middle of conference play, we had kind of figured ourselves out. We were 6-3, we were playing really well, and then Colin goes down, and we just didn't have enough behind him to weather that storm. But I wouldn't say there was a lot of new things that I learned, but a lot of my thoughts were affirmed based on my time with Bruce at Auburn. That it's one of, if not the best league in America. Every night you're going up against NBA players on the other side, and if you don't put your best foot forward, and if you're not competitive, if you're not physical, if you're not ready to go, you're going to get popped. So it's always good to remember that. And then coaching against these guys, as a coach, as a young coach, this is something that you aspire to do. You aspire to coach against Rick Barnes. You aspire to coach against John Calipari, these different guys that have had a lot of success over their career. And obviously there's a bunch more great coaches. Those are just 2 that I named. But, just kind of being in that arena with these guys is it's an honor and something that I look forward to competing against every night.
Back to the front, Bob.
And a 2-parter, if that's okay.
Okay.
And you forget the second part. Football coaches always forget the second part, but Greg can help you out. You mentioned coaches. Chris Beard obviously is a big name guy coming into the league. I don't know. I'm curious if you know Chris and just what you think his impact will be in the league. And then also, obviously Eric Musselman was a San Francisco guy. I know you weren't out there for 25 years or so, but I wonder if you know Eric, and if so, what do you think about the impact he's had at Arkansas, obviously, for bringing the program back?
Yeah, I don't know Chris personally, but obviously he's a coach that's had a lot of success in his career, and I think just like every other great coach, he's just going to continue to raise the level of our league, with what he will do at Ole Miss. And Muss is someone I've known for a long time. I actually had an opportunity to go work with Muss in the G League back in 2010 when he was the head coach of the Reno Bighorns. He actually played at San Diego for Randy Bennett and Kyle Smith, guys that coached me at St. Mary's. So we actually do go way back, probably to when I was about 20, 21 years old. Muss was a guy that when I graduated from St. Mary's and I decided, am I going to go try to play professionally or try to get into coaching, you know, I asked Muss what I should do, and he said, you should definitely go play. So I went and played overseas. But it's kind of funny how small of a world basketball is and how everything comes full circle. We competed against him when he was at Reno, and then now, you know, fast forward 5 years, he's the head coach at Arkansas, has done a wonderful job there, and now I'm at Florida competing against him on a yearly basis. So it's pretty neat. None that I'm necessarily ready to share right now.
We have time for a few more questions.
Coach, through the transfer portal, we've seen a lot of mid-major stars coming to the SEC level. What is it that you see from those guys that you're bringing into your program that you think will translate when you have to rely on them to be that star at a higher level of competition?
Yeah, it's obviously a lot of it's analytically driven. You know, guys that have had a lot of success, you know, whether it be low or mid-major level. You look at a couple different things: their efficiency, their usage, how many possessions do they use, you know, how do they fare against tier A and B competition. You know, I think that's something that's important to look at. To see if their numbers are, you know, they do really, really well against the low major teams, but they don't have as much success when they get the opportunities to compete against better teams. And, you know, like everything else, you can't say for certain that they're going to do really well or not do well, but you want to give yourself the best chance to figure it out. So, again, we're diving into a ton of data that way. We're watching a lot of film and just trying to sort it out that way.
Front row, Bob.
Once you said New Eric, I got to ask you some more stuff. New Eric obviously had a pro background for so many years. Then he makes a transition to college. He's talked about how he had to learn a lot when he first went to LSU. What do you, knowing him the way you do, what do you think made him a successful transition guy from the NBA to college? And then, you know, we've talked about it. He thinks he may be the only guy who was an NBA head coach who went to become a college assistant. You know, it's one thing to do it from head coach to head coach. You know, he obviously had to humble himself. What do you think about that aspect, and just what do you think's made him successful? And he was kind of the transfer portal before the transfer portal was cool, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it a little bit right there. I think Muss's his experience across the NBA and the CBA, you know, going back to his early days professionally, because he did take kind of that mentality to college. You know, going to Reno, you know, his first Division I job, he did kind of create the new wave of the transfer portal. You look at the Martin twins when they first got to Reno, Jordan Caroline, they had a really, really strong team, and a big part of it was because of the way he built his roster, and that was really unique across college basketball at that time. Obviously now it's really prevalent where teams are building their rosters out of the portal, but so I think that pro experience and kind of bringing a new way to think about college rosters to college basketball was something that kind of gave him head start and made him unique and gave him the opportunity to be really good, really fast at Nevada Reno, and I think he's done a very similar thing at Arkansas as well.
And the fact he went from NBA head coach to college assistant, I think a lot of guys wouldn't do that, but he was willing to humble himself to learn. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it says a lot about him, you know, that he was willing to do it, and I think he was also smart and knew that if he did it for a year or two that he would get a head job in college as well. So, yeah, I think it does say a lot about his personality that he's willing to do that.
Any more questions? Okay, Coach, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Florida players will be up next on the sides here. Well, some do it to take up time.